Right here. Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for a minute, Tim, while they all get their budget books.
Right.
Oh, no worries. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you. We've got a finance meeting this morning, committee meeting on the special objects that appear within the proposed budget for the fiscal year 25. I'm Corey Williams, Chair of Finance, joined by Councilors Hogan and Monto, who are also on the Finance Committee. And we've got the pleasure of having Councilor Nave with us as well. And we're joined by Budget Director Tim Rudd. Tim, you want to give us an overview of the special objects category and what ends up there, how it ends in there, and then we can have a discussion from there?
Well, they're called special objects because they're special, and they start on page 20. But I give you a different breakdown that just summarizes it from largest to smallest, so it's a little easier to see. But it's basically a third of our budget, right? So $112.5 million. And it pays for things like medical insurance, retirement contributions, workers' comp, and then a number of sort of one-off things that don't have a traditional home. But definitely the majority is medical insurance. That's the single biggest. We're self-insured, so we pay the claims. Medical was much higher pre-COVID, and then it really dropped during COVID. And the only reason it goes down year over year here is basically a change in the method. Essentially, we get kind of these estimates from our provider that estimate how much we're going to pay, and I had been using that, but I wasn't taking into consideration that we subtract out in less lines the employee contributions and the rebates we get from prescription drugs. So there is some uncertainty in projecting the, there's definitely uncertainty on the expenses, the actual expenses. So it's a big bucket and it's hard to predict because it depends on the health of the people in the pool. But anyway, so that's the biggest one. And then from there, it's police and fire pension contributions, which we basically get a letter from the state comptroller saying, please set aside this much. And at first it's an estimate and then it becomes a bill. And then it's like pay by the state, it's this much. And if you pay later, it's a little bit more. So we try to pay the early version. And that's the same thing for ERS, which is all the employees who are not police and fire. So that's the fourth item on there.
Which, that was a big jump, almost $2 million year over year.
It is. So and that's where I plug in the letter that we get, and I think it's a function of the wages that we've been paying and what the comptroller deems necessary to support that fund. But I basically put the number in from the comptroller. Social Security is in practice 7.65% of the total wages in the budget. The fifth biggest is the ARPA completion, which you just had the meeting on ARPA. So it's the 6 million in planned expenses. So there was the 11 million in ARPA revenue that we're going to claim this year, which in practice means next year, this ARPA project completion special object would need 5 million, right? So the difference between the 11 million and the 6 million. And the theory is just that we're not, because those are the slow to go projects, and the reason we're doing this is because they're slow moving, we're unlikely to spend it all this year.
I mean, so that's something that's worked out with the federal government. We have documentation. They're saying that's okay to move that to special object.
Well, we have kind of the projection for revenue loss that we're able to claim. So we're just claiming it, and then we're honoring those projects that we're in practice defunding. In practice, we're defunding certain planned projects in ARPA, and we're claiming revenue loss instead, which will be, essentially we say, we paid this much in police and fire expenses, they give us our ARPA money, and then we use our fund balance to restore the funding for those previously ARPA-funded projects.
Well, that's how you're going to work it.
So it's a bit of a shuffle.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at some of the housing-related items on here. We've got the 2 million for the housing trust, but then we've got land bank seizures at 300 and vacant property receivership at 200. Michelle, is that something you can speak to, those two items?
And this sheet, I'd say it makes it pretty easy to see what's new and what has disappeared, because you can, the version you have.
Is that 300,000 for the, in case we have surplus from sales?
That's a new procedure, correct?
Right.
Michelle Spansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development. So answering the questions in the order that they were, reverse order they were asked. The $300,000 is the excess proceeds for the sales. Housing Trust Fund, happy to speak to that a little bit. Implementation vehicle, basically, for the housing strategy, which we had a committee meeting about yesterday. The council authorized the creation of the trust fund at the end of this last year. So
The 2 million is on top of how much seed money from the state?
5 million,
So it's 7 total?
correct.
And then vacant property receivership?
Vacant property receivership. So this is something that is a new item this year that we're looking to add some additional resources to help kind of prioritize some additional code enforcement strategies. So receivership is a strategy that the city has not previously taken on prior to this most recent year, where we're looking to get some properties kind of in cases where landlords are not doing a particularly effective job at maintaining their properties. We're looking to get court permission to appoint a receiver to address those concerns kind of in a more timely manner. And so the funding attached to that will help facilitate some of those repairs.
And are there legal fees associated with that as well?
Corp counsel is probably best suited to speak on that, but I believe that the answer is yes.
Michelle, back to the 5 million from the state. Do we have an idea when that's coming?
So we've been in ongoing conversations with ESD about that. So we're optimistic that it should be soon, but.
Always optimistic.
Back to land bank seizures. So this wasn't, the $300,000 isn't because of the monies that we're going to have to like front the land bank regarding.
The $300,000 is specific for the excess proceeds, yes.
If there are excess proceeds.
Correct, if there are
Somebody
excess
makes a claim.
proceeds.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thanks. Thank you.
So the items that pop up as new are right, like ARPA completion, that's 6 million, is new and in theory will be there for one more year. Housing trust is 2 million. Summer youth employment program is 600,000. That used to be ARPA funded.
Now it's, yeah.
Land bank seizures is the new process. Union apprentice program, $250,000.
Where did the union apprentice program come from? You know, Frank, is that? Yeah, I feel like all of these new items would be helpful to have a little bit of background and insight into.
Frank Oliva, the city's chief administrative officer. So that is a program, it's kind of a parallel program to Pathways to Apprenticeship. So it will allow the city, there's a real move in workforce development now to have apprenticeships that lead to union apprenticeships in other than construction, but construction as well. So this would allow the city to hire apprentices that would be in union, would eventually be in union apprenticeships in some of our trades and other kind of labor positions.
So we've been operating without it up until this point. What made your office put it into the budget? Why? What was
I
the
think it was
necessity of
a function of discussions with unions on how to value, like, incorporate union pathways in city government. And initially it was discussed as should there be, with the various requirements we have, like MWBE, subcontracting, city residents, priorities, should there be some kind of preference given in the procurement process to unions? And rather than that, which could complicate the preferences we already have in place and maybe even undermine it, this was a way the city could prioritize union labor and build pathways to the workforce in theory. I think there's a number of details to be figured out for how it'll be exactly implemented, but
I don't disagree at all. I'd add more concisely from my viewpoint, it's a faster pathway to hiring than we are normally able to do because these are difficult jobs for us to recruit for. So this is a way for us to grow our own by having an apprentice here, hopefully at the other end of that apprenticeship, they'll stay and slide into a city job.
Great, thank you.
the community ambassador program, that's in codes, that was also an ARPA funded, that's $200,000 that's new. Vacant property receivership, you just talked about with Michelle. The Financial Empowerment Center, $175,000, that was also ARPA funded previously. Both the Community Ambassador Program and Financial Empowerment Center were funded at essentially twice that with ARPA funding. So
Which were, Tim, what two? The
Community Ambassador and Financial Empowerment Center.
And what is
So-
the Community Ambassador Program? You said it with codes.
It's in codes where they have liaisons. Michelle can speak to it.
Tim mostly got it there, but so our community ambassadors are working very closely with code enforcement to do outreach to properties. They act as a resource for any tenants or even homeowners that are having housing challenges. Predominantly, a lot of the folks that are on their caseload are tenants. We use them very strategically in a number of ways, but most notable are in situations in which a property owner may not consent immediately to an interior inspection when we send out the rental registry application. Tenants have the right to let code enforcement in to inspect the property, so we'll have the community ambassadors go out and do door knocking, basically kind of explain what the process is, leave information. They also do a number of outreach and kind of, I guess, case management, if you will, for tenants that may have cases that have gotten, they're somewhere in the process. Oftentimes, a lot of the folks that they're working with, just because of the transiency that we see in the city, it's properties where codes maybe has had a case open for a really long time already, but then the tenant moves, we can't get back into the property. So they're a really effective resource for us in kind of working through some of the more complicated cases.
Are we paying salaries with that money, or what
Yes,
is that?
yeah, so that's the administration. So we work with Center for Justice Innovation. We also refer to them as a peacemaking center. That's their property over on the west side. So it's covering kind of their administrative costs for hiring and doing program management.
There's language difficulties too.
Yeah, and their staff is very well versed. I think amongst their the main ambassadors, we've got at least 5 or 6 of the most frequently spoken languages covered. So.
They're very effective. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get in those properties as far as lead abatement or anything like that.
Can you explain, what is the Financial Empowerment Center? Like, maybe answer that?
Sure. So, Financial Empowerment Center, Jay Denson in Neighborhood and Business Development is the main director of that, but provides a lot of financial counseling and resources free for all city residents. So, anyone in this room available to them as well. So, they do a really good job of kind of working with folks based on whatever your personal needs are, whether you're looking to pay off some credit card debt, build some savings, thinking about retirement, any number of different things.
So your office is going to be at One Park Place? Someone has a question, wants to come in?
So the Financial Empowerment Center itself is really based kind of in the community. So we work with home headquarters. That's kind of where a lot of the counselors are working out of from an office standpoint. But Jay Denson, like I said, is the main kind of point person in terms of the administration of the Financial Empowerment Center. So he works very closely with the staff that are at the home headquarters base, and he is located over at One Park Place.
Okay, so we're going to get the word out, right, to all residents
Yep.
about this project? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good for now. Thank you.
From there, the items get smaller. There's a back page that has the rest. I guess the ones that go to zero at the bottom. So there was, a year ago, we had a $500,000 transfer to the school district. Instead of giving them part of the property tax, we did that. So this year, we're giving them $500,000 in the property tax, so this item goes away. The last few years, we've had set-asides for union contract negotiations that were to be determined, and the pay study. So that also goes away for this year. And trauma response used to be a special object, but they got moved to the mayor's office to reduce gun violence, so that contract exists within that office now. And the RAN, we just aren't doing RANs because we currently have a large fund balance, so we're not budgeting anything for temporary borrowing interest.
What are the 207 items at the top, the fire and police?
It's basically their workers' comp. So there are two codes of the fire one, which is a little weird. There should probably only be one, but the main one is higher up. It's the like 8th item on the list, sorted. Workers' comp is also one of the items that's relatively high up and has a bit of variation in it. So the expenses are typically around 3.4 million. They dipped low in 23, likely because we changed provider, and when the group that settles our outstanding claims, we switched. We did an RFP, and that probably didn't make them happy. And then, so the claims didn't get settled so much at the end of the year, and so they get settled the new year, so it dips and then it pops back up, which is why we're projecting 5.1 million in the current year, and then we expect it to normalize, maybe with a slight decrease in the what's normal in the future. But the 207 stuff is all just workers' comp for police and fire because they don't go through the same code.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. It's what? Well, it is in police. Police is, so there's like 3 207 codes. There's 2 for police and 1 for fire. So the police one is like is $1.2 million. Yeah.
What's on the back?
Why is fire much lower? I don't know, but I think it has it can be very case specific, and any individual drives it up or down.
Based on one particular case, the longstanding individual who's been severely disabled for years, and I think that's where the majority of the cost
Yeah.
is incurred. A lot of departments try to get it settled over years.
Yeah, I agree with Nader. I think we probably have some miscoding here. I think some $207 are actually creeping their way into workers' comp because the numbers don't add up based on, just on that one single claim, which is just short of $1 million annually, so.
Well, that, it does kind of, well, fire is like 200,000, police is 1.2, so it's,
Yeah,
they're both 200, and then they have the one very expensive claim.
it may be.
I mean, we don't have a great, it's one thing that we could probably have more line of sight to over the course of the year.
Well, we can get it from the third-party administrator, which we should do, and get to you.
There's another couple on the back I'm wondering about. I don't know who has insight. CNY Works in the Arts Acquisition Conservation Fund.
CNY Works, arts, I don't have anybody art acquisition. I'm not, I would have to double check, but CNY Works, I do have an email.
Generally to support their efforts in the community.
That's probably just employment assistance, right?
Yeah, that's what they do.
Replace aging technology for our career center.
So very quickly on CNY Works, we co-own CNY Works with the county. The funding comes primarily through the county, but the mayor and the county executive ex officio are the members that own CNY Works. And we do not, we have not in the past funded them. They've been totally funded by the federal dollars that come through the state to the county. This is a request for some additional administrative support that they have strong need for and don't have the dollars for themselves. So we're matching the county. The county and the city are sharing this.
I think the Arts Acquisition Conservation Fund is for public art at the Inner Harbor.
Yes.
Councilor Hogan's district.
Thank you, Councilor Manto, for your advocacy.
The bit is just, well, it's, doesn't really change in the budget, but the postage was up in the current year just from all the trash notifications.
We ask for a lot of postal services to let people know about trash cards.
Well, we're mandated to let them know,
know.
so.
So they forget about reading it on Facebook, they actually get some.
And before I forget, we promised we would talk about the sewer rate in this meeting because it didn't come up previously. So I just want to make sure we don't forget that.
Well done. Special objects.
I'm excited to hear about the sewer rate, to tell you the truth.
Puts the fun back in the fun.
Pages of sewer.
To take Jen's joke.
$62? Yeah. $259? $239? So I previously sent an email around that just described how the rate is changing. So the current rate is, how does it work? The 0.94 is per what? It's what? So the sewer rate's a function of your water usage. So it's basically a charge based on your amount of water. It's in practice going up 30%. but it's a low charge. So essentially the cost of the stuff we do. So for a single family home, this is a quarter. It's going up $1.47 a quarter. This is $1.50 a year on a single family, up, an increase of $1.50 a year. Right,
But average of, what was it, $1.58?
$1.47 for a single
Dollar.
family.
50 over the course
So it
of a
depends on
year.
the number of units, it depends how much you use, but I think we were saying $15 on average more for the sewer rate.
Per unit.
No, it's even less than that for a single family, so like average overall. And it's basically just because they're doing what they've done, but it's more expensive.
And who calculates the city's operating with the reimbursement from the water and sewer? Isn't
The
there a certain-
reimbursement from water is essentially a fixed $2.3 million transfer, and every year the water commissioner asks not to pay it, and every year I say, well, I won't increase it, and
Why is it, I know, Tim, why is it fixed?
it probably shouldn't be, it should probably go up, but
Frank's got an answer, I bet you, for this.
The primary answer to that is because we don't have the ability to do cost accounting. So it's an estimate of the expenses that are allocated, but we don't, our financial system doesn't really allow us to do cost center allocations with any level of precision.
Could we estimate higher?
I knew that's what he was going to ask.
Sure. I think the water commissioner would probably rightfully, and our auditors would probably rightfully want us to justify that. But it may in fact be higher.
I don't think that's really difficult to justify.
Yeah, I mean,
Justify.
between legal and accounting and everything else.
it just is gonna go on to a water rate increase. So it would just add to the increase
Well, I
in
mean,
water.
I'm talking about the future.
Sure. No, it's an option for sure. All the,
Sure. Yeah. Agreed. And I think it's the number that our outside auditors have a comfort level with it, and we've chosen not to push that envelope, but that doesn't say we couldn't.
I think we should broach it because maybe they're maybe more comfortable in the future.
no, it's an
I mean,
option.
everything raises, I mean, as far as costs go and stuff, and they work in tandem with all our other departments, so I just think it's justified. Same thing with sewer. If we had to do it. Sewer's $500,000, right? Reimburse? Something like that? No, I think it's half, it says transfer 525 or 540 we're going up
What page are you on?
to. Page
339.
36.
336. And we try to be like with the sidewalk fee, they have a contribution to the general fund, but I think it's 10%. It's a fixed percentage. So that's a little more clear. When they spend more, they contribute more. But we just don't have that custom with water to be increasing it, but we definitely could.
We used to have that years, I mean, there used to be a certain percentage that would sometimes move.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, if they're raising rates 4%, they should probably have their contribution to the general fund go up by 4%.
I mean, we've asked them, I mean, they've raised their fees, I mean, we've went along with raising the fees, and, so I think, yeah, more, I think, yeah, it's been 2, right? So I
I'll tell
think
the
we
water
should probably
commissioner
readjust that.
that we'll increase it. We'll
If
try to
the water
increase it next
commissioner
year.
has any issues, he can always talk to members of the city council, too, we'll talk to him,
Sounds good.
if he doesn't want to talk to the mayor.
What's that? And the sidewalk increase that's already caked in.
I have a constituent that visits me, knocks on my door, shows me his water bill. Says he doesn't use any water at all.
Is it a low
Looking
bill?
at his condition, I believe him.
One of the questions I get is the maintenance fee, you know, on the water bills. What is the maintenance fee? That's the question I'm getting.
The water commissioner is best served, but he has added a variety of fees in order to be able to have some mechanisms to raise money that are not just rate increases. And it often has to do with the number of connections, the size of your connection, and I think a part of that is trying to get different parties to pay more for their access to water. But yeah, I couldn't, you would have to really ask the water commissioner.
I mean, our water infrastructure obviously is critical. I mean, you know, it's one of the reasons that we're going to have that big plant built just to the north of the city. But inside the city, I mean, with all the challenges over the years, I can understand them raising the rates. But in reality, they work in tandem with our other operating departments too. So I think we should probably get a little piece of the action.
Any other?
Anyone else?
Thank you,
All
councilors.
right.
Thank you.
Tim.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tim.
Frank. Thanks, everybody.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Yeah. Great. Thank you, everyone.